What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 442 of Opinions May Vary. I am your host, JR. Joining me, as always, is my wonderful co-host, Alex.
Hello.
I tried to think of a different adjective. I just kind of say either like wonderful or like lovely. Have I ever said lovely? I should have said lovely.
Save it for next time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. That's going to be the next one. My main man, Alex. Alex, it's been a little bit, but it's going to be worth it. My microphone actually had dust on it. I had to clear off the dust. But it's going to be worth it because waiting patiently for us. We do have a guest this week. We are joined by a local artist. We haven't talked to someone this close in quite some time, which is pretty exciting because when we make references to local geography, they'll get it, hopefully. But joining us is artist and illustrator Amanda Putnam. Amanda, thank you so much for coming on today.
Oh, awesome. Thank you for having me on. And to add another word to give Alex that I always use, fantastical. The fantastical Alex.
Oh, gosh.
That's accurate. Seeing as Alex has introduced me to a slew of fantastical things.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's fair. Alex also introduced me, Amanda, to you and your work, which I would argue is fantastical.
Oh, thank you.
Looking at it, it's a lot of fun. I had briefly mentioned in pre-show as a joke, but I feel like it warrants discussion because like a half hour ago, Amanda was up a mountain, like up on a mountain. And I was joking with Alex because I'm one of those people back when I worked in retail. Like if I had a closing shift, the closing shift meant there was no day. It meant I'm going to sit around the house and I'm going to wait until I have to go into work. But I also worked with people who, like, if they were on a closing shift, they would climb mountains in the morning.
Feels.
Right? Yeah. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah. I think Amanda is not like the me. She's like the people that I used to work with.
Gotcha.
But so you're an artist, an illustrator, also an educator as well, if I have that correct.
Yes.
So there's a lot to get into. I'm gonna kick us off talking your art.
Right.
We've talked with a couple because you mainly work in watercolor. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, so we've talked with a couple watercolor artists in the past, and I'm going to hit you with the same question I hit all of them.
Yeah.
How
you
do that?
Well, firstly, you have to talk nicely to it. But nonetheless, it was a journey. It was a journey to get to the level that I am now. Because at first I taught myself. I did not have any formal watercolor training, and I would frequent and revisit the couple of fantasy art books that are by John Howe, because he is in my opinion, one of the most masterful art watercolorists in this world. So I tried to paint his work a lot, as best as I can. At a 16-year-old self, it was pretty bad, but nonetheless, you just learn to control the chaos. You learn to work with it instead of against it. So that's how we work together. Us and the watercolors is how we work.
I feel like that's a similar answer that we've gotten in the past as well.
Yeah.
It's just kind of controlling, because like even watching people paint, it does feel like there's an element of working to control what's kind of splattering onto the page, you know, like I have about 20 minutes of watercolor, what's the word I'm looking for? Experience. And that was, in sixth grade art class, desperately trying to figure out what the color wheel meant, and like wondering why my piece of paper was just crinkling into a ball of nothing.
Just getting soggy.
Yeah,
Mhm.
just a soggy mess. And then
Oh,
my,
yeah.
my art teacher despised me.
Oh,
So
goodness.
it wasn't a very great experience. So when I see people do watercolor, it just kind of blows my mind.
Oh,
I mean,
well,
art in general is mind blowing. But then when I see watercolor, because you're painting on something that doesn't like to get wet, but you're using wet.
well, you go into a stretching kind of, as a watercolorist, there's many different ways in order to make sure that your surface is acceptable for the, I will use the word abuse, that you're going to put onto the paper. And that's by really just pinning it down, taping it down, and stretching it. So that keeps it nice and flat.
Right.
Yeah.
What's fun for me is that I guess the three watercolor artists that I'm most familiar with, between you, Tony Moy, and Daniel Govar.
Oh yes, Daniel.
You have almost, I want to say, completely different style. Like the outcomes for all of your styles are completely different, because you have some of the finest lines that I can't really grasp how watercolor stays in the lines.
Thank you. That's a really wonderful compliment.
and I feel Tony is very he strives by the chaos and lets it do whatever it wants to do and then works with it. And Govar just somehow dragons appear on his page over and over again. So,
oh yeah, he's just here's my special dagger brush, and just like, let me just throw it on there, and then up dragon.
As you do.
Yes. Here there be dragons all the time, everywhere.
So I guess it's have you worked towards your particular style? Like, how long did it take you from, because a lot of artists, like, they start out and they try to reproduce a few things until they get to a point where they realize, well, I can do my own thing. About how long do you think that took for you?
Oh, in terms of like a time span for years, I would say, let's see. I would say I worked solidly in establishing my professional level and understanding with watercolor for a solid 4 years, from like 2012 to 2016, just about. Because that's when I was graduating from my bachelor's degree, which was a state school, and the art department was geared towards art education for me. And from there, I was just like, I need more. I don't know where to go from here. So I invested to go to the Academy of Art in San Francisco to earn my my master's in fine arts in children's book illustration in general. So taking more formal classes during that time span allowed me to get to the level that I needed to be to jumpstart where I am now, if that makes sense.
Is that frustrating? Because from what I just now gleaned was like, I want to go to school for art. And they go, here, you can teach art. Here's classes how to teach art. And it's like, but I want to art. And they go, nope, here's your educational classes. And then where do I go from here? Is this really what I want?
Yes, I get that. Well, I mean, I did want to invest in going in education. I love teaching. Inspiring is one of the reasons why I feel like I'm on this earth. I love to bring goodness to people in any way that I can. And teaching is, one of those ways to bring that goodness to people's lives and inspiring them. So, I did want to go still into the education means, but yeah, it was very focused more on the like super, super basics and the art education aspect of it, which was totally fine. That's where, you start small and then you work up. But being a state school too, it wasn't a art college or art university, which is a lot more rigorous in terms of technique building. Nothing against my state school whatsoever. It's a very good state school, but now a university, I should say. But nonetheless, I needed that more refined tuning, so I was able to feel confident enough to teach, because I felt like I wasn't ready yet. I wasn't professional enough, because I wanted to be that art teacher that brought a professional level of knowledge and work and intuition to the classroom for the kids. Because I felt like that would be something important. I wish I had. Again, no dissing my art teachers. I still have really good relationships with them. I'm going for a motorcycle ride with one of them sometime. We're gonna own the streets soon, which is gonna be great. Got the 70-year-old woman on her Harley and a new art teacher coming up on her Suzuki Marauder. Let's go. Yeah, nonetheless, it was a little frustrating to relearn a lot when I went into my more advanced stages of teaching myself, or I should say in, my educational career, to relearning what I needed to know in order to get to where I was. Yeah, it was a trip for sure.
I did want to touch on, you had mentioned, and we've touched on it a couple of times, being an educator. Now, are you specifically an art teacher?
Yes, I am. I am a visual arts teacher at a private school here in Granby, Massachusetts.
Nice. Well, first off, thank you for doing what you do.
Thank you.
The last 18 months has been tough on everyone, not to especially teachers. My brother is an educator as well, in Connecticut, and I know that it's been incredibly stressful. How has it, specifically being an art teacher? I'm curious how that impacted your I guess your duties, because it's one thing to try and teach math over Zoom, but when trying to teach art, how did you have to adapt? How did that work?
Oh, yes. Well, I had my phone hooked up above me, my iPad on the side so I can see them, and they can see another angle of what I'm doing for demos, and obviously would have the school computer on the other side of me to watch them, to see them, engage and stuff. So when I did demonstrations, that's basically how I set up things, technology-wise. Technology has been fun. Definitely have had some setbacks here and there, but yeah. And, a lot of my students, as you know, art class, you kind of are given this demonstration, you're given this direction, these expectations of the project and what is expected of you as a student working. And via Zoom, it's very independent class. So kids are working on their stuff pretty independently. So it's just me going from either one by one, depending on the age group too, to kind of talk to them, see where they're at, show me their work. Ceramics has been a great one to teach online, especially with supplies being a thing. I have had, unfortunately, but we are remote this week. We will be back in person next week. But the amount of times, even remote, I just had to go to campus for students to get the supplies that they need. Dedication. It's what we do, right?
Right.
So it's been interesting, though. I've been learning a lot from the kids in this aspect. This will be like something I can branch off from and continue to, improve in my teaching and everything like that. So it's a learning process, I feel like, for every teacher right now.
Right.
Yeah.
I guess that's something I never even thought about with the supplies needing to get into the kids' hands. It's so much, you don't even think about it when you're at the school. You go to art class, and then the teacher puts down a hunk of clay in front of you.
Yes, here's the 50-pound bag of clay. Why don't you just take a big chunk of that? Let's go. Yeah.
Whereas
everyone collectively washes their brushes off in the big craft sink.
And then the art teacher holds up your thing in front of the entire class, and they say, "This is it. This is what you're turning in." And then a very young and traumatized JR says, who was really proud of it, goes, "Yeah." And they say, "Okay." And then you get it back with a C on it.
Oh my
and you
God.
and you feel absolutely terrible.
Oh my God.
Anyways,
oh my God.
I told you, yeah, I didn't have the best relationship with my art teacher.
I'm so sorry.
But maybe that was the scarring that just told me that, you know what, maybe just talk to people who do art instead of trying to.
Well,
You're still involved no matter what, so that's wonderful.
Don't discount different kinds of art, because Jared loved his chorus teacher.
It's true. My choir teacher is one of the most influential people in my life. Unfortunately, she did pass away, like 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're talking other types of art, that was definitely a huge plus.
That's wonderful.
I should have put that together.
So, as we were talking about materials, like, you could expect kids to have pencils and pens at home, but when you want to branch out to other mediums, you can't expect everyone to have paints or crayons or markers or.
Nope.
Is that something you had to adapt to, and, like you said, come collect materials, or just work with the materials the students would have?
It's a give or take kind of thing too. It's also a boarding school as well, so there are some kids that are on the premises of sorts. So and it really is it's a student to student kind of situation sometimes when it comes to, especially with COVID related situations and all that kind of stuff. It's grading has been interesting. Because it's, like I said, very one-on-one right now. It's not easy to grade on a umbrella for all these kids because there's so many different situations and travel and coming back and quarantining and sick and all this kind of stuff. So, but yeah, supplies, I try to do my best. If, if there's boarders that I'm there and they can come and get their stuff for that time period, perfect, great. But if, there's kids at school that can't get anything and everything, we try to discuss what they have and how they can continue with their project to make some sort of final product for it. That's what we got to do, work with them.
Right. Once again, thank you for doing what you do.
Thank you, JR. I appreciate that. A lot of us
are very spoiled in the last, I said 18 months. I've been saying 18 months for what feels like months now, and I need to adapt because it's been like 21 months. But it's been hard for everyone, yes. Especially teachers. I can't even begin to imagine. So again, thank you.
Thank you. No, we appreciate all you guys.
Hopefully the kids thank you as well.
Oh, yes, they do. Yes, they definitely do. I'm very thankful for my students. They're wonderful.
So switching gears, one thing I was very intrigued to see, and I guess this goes with my work history as well. And you had mentioned it because you have a degree in it. In is it children's illustration, or is it right? Like,
it's children's book illustration.
Children's book. You're right. Okay. I worked for a bookstore for a decade, so selling kids' books was part of the job. Came across all sorts of them. Every now and then we'd get like the really popular one. The last one that I really remember was the day the crayons quit.
Yes,
that was a big one. That was a big one for a long time. But what drove to pursue that degree specifically?
Gotcha. Well, so at that time that I was looking for a master's in illustration, a master's in fine arts in illustration, there were not many schools anywhere that had a specific master's in fine arts in illustration that wasn't part-time or wasn't like half online, half there, or was like more of a written exploration kind of MFA, and not so much like work heavy of sorts. But I found this school in San Francisco, which, goodness, the quality of education, the teachers there, fantastic, expensive, but fantastic. But I wanted to go into illustration. for one. When I was graduating and graduate from my bachelor's, I didn't really have a style. I loved fantasy. Fantasy has always been my world. Like, I have friends from elementary school into high school sending me pictures, being like, look what I found. There's a drawing of a horse that I gave them, because all I drew was horses, Pegasus, unicorns, dragons, and a lot of werewolves too. So, I love fantasy. Fantasy is my life. I kind of live one, right? I walk around, I go for hikes in elf ears. It's what I do. But I knew I didn't know if I wanted to go into fantasy illustration or kind of have more broader sense of illustration in the children's book world, because there's such an open, there's just an open world, open forum for how many directions you can go in the children's book world. There's the simplistic ends of styles. There's the middle grade novels, the young adult novels, the cover art, your normal 30, 35 page children's books, picture books and all that kind of stuff. There's such a wide range and a plethora of that I just felt that I wanted to go into that direction to give me that path in order to figure out what I wanted to go into. Right now, my work obviously is very fantasy based, because D&D is ramped up, Magic cards is ramped up, and all that kind of stuff is just really big right now. And so after, I wouldn't say I had trouble establishing ideas in a children's book sense, I turned back into my fantasy work, or my fantasy direction. And I felt and continued to feel so much more comfortable. And during COVID, there was something I look forward to every day. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Tony DiTerlizzi and Angela DiTerlizzi.
Yes. Yeah, they write is that Spiderwick?
Yes, Spiderwick Chronicles, amongst many other things. Yes. Sweet jam. But during COVID, before then I was in between jobs, teaching and subbing and trying to work on my stuff, and just in a place where a lot of reform was happening in my life. And during the first, quarantine of COVID, Tony DiTerlizzi and Angela DiTerlizzi, they started every day at a certain time, drawn to fantasy is what we called us. And he would draw. They would talk and draw, and we would draw with him. And drawing with him and Angela, and just having conversations with them during that time, with the 100+ people that would join, and it reminded me my love for fantasy art again. And that's where I'm basically more focused on now, is the fantasy art aspect. I'm very good at one time pass kind of art. Like, you got your subject, boom, right there. I can do character work and all that kind of stuff, but I haven't really necessarily made a cohesive character narrative just yet. I'm working on that slowly. But yeah, that's kind of the journey in which I came. And I am so thankful for that time where Tony and Angela just kind of had that. It really sparked, and they really were very wonderful guidances and in my life at that time too. So I have to thank them like 1,000 times over.
That's super neat. It's because the beginning, especially when no one knew what was going on and everyone was locked up, and the celebrities were crying in their mansions about how bored they were.
Oh my God, right?
And singing to us. There was some positives that came out of it. There was a lot of, I guess, visibility with some people, and I didn't even know that happened with the. I think I've been saying it right all this time, with the DiTerlizzis. Because I used to shelve their books constantly. Spiderwick was one of those series. It's always in stock. You got to have Spiderwick.
Definitely.
But that's just it's just neat to hear about stuff like that. They realize that they're in a position, people look up to them and they admire their work, and they make themselves available to people who may be struggling during a very uncertain time.
Yes,
you know,
definitely.
and it helps you find your artistic voice again. It's just neat.
Yes, definitely, for sure.
I did want to touch real quick, sticking on the kids' books theme here, before I lose my train of thought, because growing up, stories were a big part of my childhood. My mother ran a home daycare for 30-something years, so we always had the books. They're always read to us.
Yes.
A lot of, specifically like the picture books, and a lot of them kind of stuck with me. And looking back, like the stories were great, but really, the art can just elevate a story so much more. Like your classics, like Mike Mulligan and his steam shovel. I mean, come on, you can't beat Mike Mulligan. And like, I did want to touch on, I'm curious, what specifically illustrating for like a children's book versus illustrating for an adult, like, are there things you have to watch for? Because I'm going to use a specific example here. Just bear with me. I'm sorry. It's going to be my really long questions, but there's a reason.
No, it's all
good. There was a book that my mother read to me all the time as a kid. Unbeknownst to her, excuse my language, it scared the shit out of me. This book terrified me.
Oh boy.
It was called The Little Mouse, the Red Ripe Strawberry, and the Big Hungry Bear.
Oh, goodness.
And I think I may have mentioned this book on the show before. I can't remember. But it's essentially a story about a mouse that finds a giant strawberry, and he's trying to hide the strawberry from this bear.
Yeah.
And,
I know this story.
Right? And you never really see the bear. It's just the impending threat of a bear. There is a bear somewhere, and it's coming for this strawberry, and it's going to kill this mouse to get it. And like this mouse does everything it can. It buries it. It dresses it up in a disguise. It does. And like in the end, it's a happy ending because it cuts the strawberry in half and it shares it with the bear. It's nice. You still never see the bear, but like this book used to scare the shit out of me because man, this mouse was so scared, dude. Like it was, and just the way the art was drawn, it was very realistic, I guess. It was it was very good art, a very unique it just scared me. My mom never knew until actually a couple years ago, and I was like, yeah, that book was traumatizing, and it ruined her day.
Oh my goodness. So like communication is very important.
But drawing for children versus drawing for like a commission for an adult, are there things that like you would need to watch out for?
That is a question indeed. In terms of watch out for, I wouldn't say if there's anything to watch out for. I mean, obviously to, create work that is appeasing, and also relatable, especially to children, because I mean, children, they're all about that, their own world. So if you create characters that are, relatable to them, that's a really important thing. So I guess kind of thinking about that, if you are to, watch out or watch for something for children's book, is to make characters very relatable to the current, population of children and stuff like that. And yeah, I mean, for adults, it wouldn't, when I do commissions, it's whatever you want. Like, let's go.
Right.
You're the one making my truck move, still. So keeping that, gas tank full. So, what do you need?
Right. Yeah. Just tell me, as long as it's within reason and not vile.
Yes. Of course. I mean, there are a plethora of people with styles in certain things, and obviously I have one. So, but yeah, no, that would, children are so, they're exposed to so much kind of visual art now that there really isn't a limit of sorts to be able to create for them, because they accept it and they want it. So, just allowing that open, I guess, to the current needs of the generation right now, basically.
Right.
If that makes sense at all.
I think it speaks, what you're saying, I think speaks a lot to stuff like, as long as you're making good characters and good story, like, you know, you can see something like Adventure Time, which isn't the crazy detailed, like hyper realistic type of stuff. It's a little more simplistic, but still people love it. It's funny. It makes them laugh. It tells a good story. You know, it's you don't necessarily need to break the mold every single time.
Yeah, not at all.
But you also do get the more intensive, and I mean, we were raised on shows like Reboot, the greatest technological advancement in cartoon history,
right?
Paving the way for modern classics like Beast Wars.
Bringing it back. Let's
that was
go.
just a pop, Alex. I just wanted to.
Thank
you. The show is called Opinions May Vary, and I think the main varying opinion is I think Beast Wars is great. Alex isn't a fan.
Gotcha.
No.
That's pretty much it. That's like the one varying opinion.
There's a few others. There's more. Anyway.
Oh goodness.
On your website, there's a few examples of some of the story art that you've done, and I guess if it's up to like when you take the job or the contract, how much of the design and the work is something that you try to make your own versus, well, this is what the Cheshire Cat should look like, so this is what I need to paint, versus, well, I'm going to make the dragon a bit more like my style dragon.
Oh, gotcha. That's a good question. Well, I mean, when it comes to clients, if, you know, one were to reach out to me as a client and ask, they obviously, my style works for what they need. So even though they have bullet point A, B, C, and D, that might be like, you need to include these. And I'll just be like, well, the rest is free reign. So, you know, because if a person is looking at your art and asked to create something for them, you know, they like your style. So they want you to be able to put your style into it. And of course, if there's any, I communicate with clients all the time in terms of like, if I feel like something needs to be altered or changed, that's, you know, that branches off into a different ish direction from what is known of a character or something like that, then I pass it by them. But nonetheless, even developing your own stuff, that even is, you know, a very relatable character, like you said, the Cheshire Cat, one of my commissions that I've done, I just go with it. You know, I have the idea of a Cheshire Cat, and this is how I felt like he should have looked like. So there's really, I guess you could say there's not really like a, what's the word I'm looking for? Not limitation, but your style just kind of comes out as you develop work, no matter what. If that makes sense. Yeah.
At this point, do you have time to yourself to draw and paint what you want to draw and paint, or is it taken up with your day job and your commission work, and you're doing what the clients tell you to, and how often do you get to just make what you want to make?
Oh, that's nice. Good question too. I will say the teaching job has definitely taken a lot of my energy, but it's good to have, you know, being a teacher, we have those breaks, and I use those breaks to completely detach from the job and focus on projects that are either client-based, any deadline client work that needs to be done. And I usually always have about 2 projects that I work on when I can, that are my like personal stuff. So if you have been on my Instagram lately, I just posted a quote unquote self-portrait of myself as a what is it called? A tiefling, I believe is how you pronounce it. A horned elf. So I did that in charcoal because, man, I've missed charcoal. I haven't I have not done anything with charcoal in, oh my goodness, like a few years. And I took a very, very, very hard classes that I almost failed because that's how ridiculous they were in terms of getting your values correct. Yeah, it was a tough school. Anyways, but that was a personal work of mine that I've been wanting to do myself, because I have not done a self-portrait either for 4 years. So it was time. It was time. But in terms of, yes, personal work, I do have things lying around. I'm sitting in my art studio right now, and I'm looking at the several that I have pinned up in front of my face. I draw a lot of my ideas, which are pinned, like I said, I'm looking at them on tracing paper. So I at least I get the final drawing, clean lined drawing down on the tracing paper, so that when I'm ready and when, they, in some ways they tell me, let's go, let's start painting me, then yep, they come down and I start transferring them to my final surface. But I tend to like to work when it comes to personal work right now. Just having the pieces tell me when I'm like in need to paint them, kind of thing. So yeah.
we did it again. We did it.
It's when
we both went to ask
we're both
questions
about to ask a question.
Oh, gotcha.
Jerry, you go.
Yeah, I was gonna kind of in the same note. I did notice when scrolling through your Instagram, Instagram.com/Amanda Putnam _illustration.
Yes.
If people want to see what we're looking at, one thing that I really thought was interesting, and being a non-artist myself, I like to see how different artists approach it. You have posted some work that you may have started some time ago, upwards of like almost a decade ago, and it's like, you know what, I picked this up again, and I added to it, I made it, I improved it, I felt like it needed a little bit extra.
Yes.
How do you feel about the importance of, because I've known artists who, when you say, hey, look at this thing you made me years and years and years ago, they won't even look at it. Get it out of my face. I don't want to see it. I hate it. It's trash. Don't show me that. It's garbage. I'm going to redo it. Let me redo it.
Or they're never finished with it. They always want to keep working on it.
Oh yeah.
How important is it, do you think, to kind of revisit work like that and recognize that you've grown as an artist?
Yes, that it is very important. Because I feel that artists, in every way, shape, or form, we are in our heads a lot of the time. When we are working, we are analyzing ourselves, our work, how it's going to go, looking, especially me, I'm thinking scientifically, mathematically, like this light has to be like this because at that angle, at this sunlight time, all this kind of stuff is in our heads as we're working. And we always, I feel, we're our own worst critic. We always put ourselves down because we feel like we're just not there yet. It's a journey to continue to work hard to get to where you can and get to where you want to be, right? Mm-hmm. So when you save work that you're proud of to a point, and work, I mean, I'm guilty. I've thrown away a lot. Let me be real. But that's also because I produced a lot of work, a lot of it. So there was definitely room to be like, yeah, we don't need this no more. But I mean, it's 5 and I drew this really awesome horse. Keep that. But nonetheless, it's always good to go back to your older work and remember the feeling that work gave you while you were working on it, and the time that you were working on it, and what was happening in your life at that time. Because if you go back and you reflect, you're only going to learn to become better as an artist. And I do, like you mentioned, there was a couple of pieces that I practically, quote unquote, redid because I liked them so much. But at that time, my watercolor skills was self-taught. One of them, for example, is now what I deem one of my strongest pieces ever is the dragon sword, which is that snake-like dragon going around a short dagger, or a long dagger, I should say. Because watercolor is amazing. You can layer if you know how to control it. If you understand the how important dry time is when it comes to layering upon layering and the translucentness of the medium, you can go back to something and make it 10 times better. And which is what I did with that piece. So when I first did that dagger, I remember specifically how frustrated I was doing that piece, because at that time I was still, when I was first teaching myself watercolor and into my MFA, I was still very afraid to jump in with watercolor, or charge in would be the exact term. So charging in with watercolor is just really loading your brush, loading your eyedropper, whatever you're using, and just throwing that paint down. So you don't necessarily have to go back and back and back, and then you start overworking and creating what's called mud. You know, the colors just mix together and they just make it dull. But when I drew that drawing, it was mainly shadowed with pencil with light washes of watercolor, and I just couldn't get it. And I remember when I was so frustrated, I looked at that piece and I literally like, cause you know, us artists, these pieces are part of us. It's like we talk to them a bit. And I looked at this piece and I was like, you're not ready yet. And you're going to be put somewhere, and someday you're going to be at the level I want you to be. So fast forward after, you know, my MFA, blah, 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 moving situations, going through my work again. And also at a time where I felt that I was not producing a lot of portfolio work because I was also teaching, full time at a certain, school that was, it was a lot. It was a lot. So I barely had much energy to do much. But I found this piece, and I will say I forgot about it. I forgot about this piece because we, as artists, we produce a lot. And so I forgot about this piece, and I found it, and I was just like, oh my God, oh, I'm going to repaint you right now. And I just started. I just painted it. Fix the face, fix everything, because I could, with watercolor, it's such a forgiving medium that it will allow you to work and continue to work if you know how to work with it, if that makes sense. And lo and behold, you know, I created that piece and another one that I pulled out of the drawers and enhanced, because they were at levels and layers that was probably about like my 20 percentile of layers now, which allowed me for that 80% of building that piece up. And yeah, so it's really important to keep those works with you so that you can revisit and learn from, and if not, use them again. Sometimes ideas, some of my ideas that I have now, I drew in sketchbooks 10 years ago. That obviously are not in my, you know, level of skill now, but the idea was still there. So it's super important. Super important. We're on a learning journey. So just be open to that learning journey always.
One of my first experiences with that, our friend of ours, Colin, had commissioned a mutual friend of ours, Mr. Brett Kelly.
Yes. Wonderful Brett Kelly.
We kind of buried the lead. We didn't even know, like when we had reached out to record, we weren't even aware that you guys had worked together at one point.
Yes, chart pack buddies, just hiding in the warehouse while we watch oil paints being made, and he would know me screaming this artist's name all the time because that's what I did. I would just scream at the top of my lungs, "Shawiwi," because we had to organize hundreds of things. And this artist, I just mispronounced her name wrong, and it just stuck. Anyways, tangent.
It's been a while because I've been following your Instagram page for a couple years, knowing someday I would ask you to come on the show. Yay! And it's just a matter of like refining and be like, yeah, now's a good time. But it's been weird because I've seen that you're friends with Brett, or you're friends with Jared, who's work week, Dave Mahan, and and some other like local friends, and I'm like, should I know you? I feel like I should know who you are. We're in like
yes, this... I think you should.
Because we travel through a lot of the same local circles, and it kept being baffling to me. Yeah, I was like, well, now is the time, and I told Jar, because we're going to be wrapping up the show in a couple months.
Yes, you mentioned that.
Yeah, and I was like, well, I have a couple new ideas before we get to our good friends to say our goodbyes. And I was like, well, I have another new idea, and Jerry goes, well, okay, let's, I'm up for it. And I sent him your page, and within seconds, he responded with the portrait of a German Shepherd that you did. He goes, sold, let's do it, book it.
My cousin Shepherd. Yeah, sniper.
Yep.
Well, I'm glad that my work was just so instantaneously gave you that kind of reaction so quickly. Yeah. Thank you.
It really did. It was, and even like seeing the portrait itself, you noted like, I don't do these too often, but it's a gift. It was really neat. And like, I don't mean to, the rest of your work also speaks for itself. It's fantastic. And the German Shepherd, I have a Shepherd of my own. It spoke, and I was like, hell yes, let's do this. And then when Brett found out, our very good friend Brett loved that man to pieces. He was very excited. But what I was getting at in reference to like artists never being able to stop, our friend Colin had commissioned Brett to draw something for me for my birthday. It was the birthday or Christmas one year, I can't remember. And I had sent a picture of like my office at one point.
I see.
The picture was in the back. I was like, oh, hey Brett, look, yeah, it's your thing. And he's like, oh, cool. Can you send a clearer picture of that? And I was like, sorry? And he's like, I just want to see it better. And I was like, sure, that's cool.
I'm totally imagining Brett saying that in his like, he's got this Brett like voice tone about him, and I'm just like, I can picture that.
Because he needed to see how the markers were holding up.
Yeah.
And he wanted to see if there's any degradation, because of course, if there was, he would need to fix it. But I was like, no, Brett, it's lovely. It's beautiful. I literally am staring at it right now. It's 2 feet from my face. It stares at me while I work every day.
Beautiful.
It's one of my favorite things. But I get it. I've seen it before. It's inevitable. But okay. Next, Alex, do you have anything else you want to touch on that? Because I was going to change subjects hard.
I'm ready to change too.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, let's go.
Can we? I don't know if you're going the same direction, Alex. But at the very least, can we talk about archery?
Yes, you can.
Because it's super intriguing to me. First, I have a couple things that I wanted to touch on quick. But I've seen on your Instagram, it seems like you are familiar in archery. You dabble at the very least.
Dabble, yes, for sure. If anything.
So archery, what some people might not know is it is fun as hell.
Yes, it
is. It's strangely addicting. It's not the most expensive thing in the world, and like it's very fun.
Yeah.
My my mother taught archery at like day camp for years. So I always had I had a tiny little bow. I remember my bow was pink. But when I was a kid, I couldn't have a pink bow, so I told myself it was red. But it was a pink bow. It was a sweet pink bow.
I see.
And I had to have a popsicle stick taped to the side because I could never keep arrows properly up.
Oh yeah. Hey, you do what you got to do.
Yep. They'd always fall. How'd you get into archery? What drew you to it? I just kind of kick things off. What's your background in that?
Of course. Well, I wouldn't say I'm in any means like an expert by any chance. I have always loved archery just for the aesthetic, the beauty of it. It just always spoke to me, but never invested in it. And then I went to a Ren Fair. What Ren Fair was this? I believe Mutton and Mead in Montgomery, Massachusetts. Small, good little fair. And just walking around being my elven self, wreaking havoc everywhere, but it's fine. I saw this woodsmith there, and I saw his lineup of bows, and obviously I knew nothing. I'm not, like I said, an expert by any means, but at the time I knew nothing about poundage or any kind of stuff. And he kind of helped me choose one of his handmade bows. So my bow that he handmade is 3 kinds of birch. It's a long bow. It was a little expensive, but it was one of those things, when you're out and about shopping or just like out and about in general, that just speaks to you. Mm-hmm. Yep. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to give you my, goodness, I think it was a little less than 200, but nonetheless, I mean, it's a beautiful bow. And that just kind of got me started because I, never had one, and then just invested in arrows, which, are very inexpensive, and a target, which was decent enough, and just, shot in my backyard. I still do archery here and there. I am part of a bowman's club. Right now, I haven't frequented the area in a bit, but that's only because I dressed up like a woodland elf with my bow, and I just had it stringed up for Halloween. And unfortunately, my bow snapped a little.
Oh no.
Yes. And which is fine. It might have been on my end because I did not use it as often, which with this kind of wood, the woodsmith told me to obviously oil it, but because of the use, to not oil it as much. So maybe I just didn't oil it enough or oiled it too much. I don't know. And it just kind of snapped, and that's okay. I told him about it, and he's making me a new one for free, which I'm just floored and thankful for. And I told him, you're not giving me anything for free. You're going to be getting a piece of art from me for this. I cannot accept such craftsmanship for free.
Good trade.
Yes, of course. So he's in the works with that. But to add, if anyone ever wants to look for a really beautiful, just anything wood, but handmade longbow, just for aesthetic purposes, if anyone wants to go on Instagram, it's Green River Woodcraft. People can look him up. He is at the high school wood shop teacher here in Northampton, Massachusetts. So, which is pretty cool. Yeah. And, but anyways, I have been looking into possibly starting to invest in maybe some sort of compound bow that I'm able to pull back, because obviously those are a lot more powerful.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But I would definitely love to get that as a hobby of sorts in my life in a more frequent way. Still really cool though.
It's incredibly fun, and it's just I haven't shot a bow in 20 years, but still I can still recall anytime you get even close to the bullseye. Man, I'm still chasing that high.
I know. You're just like, oh my God, yes. I feel that. I feel this.
It's a lot of fun. It's satisfying. It's also like, the feeling of airmailing one way over the target, praying you're not hitting anything valuable. We've all been there.
Yes. Goodness.
Have you caught any of Hawkeye or anything like that?
No, I have not, unfortunately.
I did see, I was curious if you had seen it at all.
I know I've been wanting to. I just haven't had time. Yeah. Witcher has been my life.
Uh-huh.
I feel like that's fair.
It's fair. Witcher and Sword Art Online, actually, someone introduced me to, and I was like, this is great.
Right, yeah, I've heard good things. I haven't seen any of Sword Art, but I've heard I can't remember if someone came on the show to pitch that at one point, but
I think me and Colin may have talked about it.
Think, yeah, it sounds familiar.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool anime. I like it. But anyways.
But I can't remember where I was going. But yeah, I've heard some criticisms of the bow usage in Hawkeye.
I wouldn't doubt it.
But, Hollywood, it is what it is.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's the same thing with Lord of the Rings with Legolas, Orlando Bloom just shooting the no arrows, just kind of, it's fine. Just CGI that arrow. It's good. It's a lot. I recommend if anyone has the opportunity, if you want to go shoot bow and arrow, like if you get the chance, take it. So compound bows are fun. I've only shot a compound bow like once in my life, but man, those things are powerful.
Those things are, it was shocking.
Oh yeah.
All right. Yeah. Archery. It's fun. That's essentially our archery segment.
I love it.
Share and subscribe. Alex, where were you going to go?
Oh, I just want to chat for a second about individuality.
Because of course.
Almost, I'll say 80% of your pictures on your Instagram, you're wearing elf ears of some kind. You call yourself an elf Viking, a lot of elf imagery. And recently I saw a friend share a post of like, we only get one life. So why not be who you want to be? Like, go ahead and customize your character. So I just was wondering if you have anything to say about that.
Yeah, no, well, I guess you could say recently I actually got these elf ears that I wear quite frequently. And I've just been finding that wearing them brings a lot of joy to people, from messages to when I'm in public. I remember the first time that I went on a hike and I wore my elf ears because why not? There was a father and two young children coming in the opposite direction, and they stopped, and the pure joy on their face just made me so happy to know I've made their day that magical, that I just like wearing them, knowing that, it brings me joy, it brings others joy. Now that this aesthetic that I wear them quite frequently of sorts, and obviously building that persona of that Viking-esque warrior, elven warrior kind of aesthetic, I've been finding that a lot of people like expect that. For an example, the Norman Rockwell Museum just had a fantasy art show, which was postponed due to COVID when it first happened. And I was devastated, but waited, and it was worth the wait. But I went to that fantasy art show with my elf ears several times. And when I, there was one time where I brought some students to a little field trip there. And my elf ears were in my pocket. I didn't put them on right away because you're wrangling kids, high school kids, and you're kind of like in that, mama bear teacher mode of sorts. So couple of the security guards there now follow me on social media, and the Norman Rockwell Museum follows me as well. But I remember just looking at one of the pieces there by Frank Frazetta that they had on loan, and here comes one of the security guards being like, "Are you feeling okay? Your elf ears aren't on. Are you doing okay?" and I was like, "Hold up!" Take some out of my pocket and put some on. Which I did get a lot of smiles for that, and a lot of younger children that were there, because I also was drawing all these work, as studies, and having my elf ears on, and I have all these kids around me. Oh my God, asking if they could take a picture with me and if they could take a picture of me and saying, "I love your ear." Like, it made me so happy to bring more smiles to their day. So, yeah, I just think it's great. I have the face for it too, I feel. So, the elven angles.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of people who are unapologetically themselves. It's something that, especially over the last 20 months, whatever, has really kind of hit home in that,
yes.
Like Alex said, life is short. You get one of them. So why worry about what other people are like? A friend of mine hit me up the other day, who recently got his first tattoo with his wife. They got matching tattoos there for their 10th anniversary. It's adorable. I was so excited for them. And they hit me up again the other day, and they're like, "Do you think it'd be weird if I got another matching tattoo with my wife?" And I was like, "Dude, get as many matching tattoos with your wife as you want."
Yes.
Like, if people have a problem with the deep emotional connection you have with the person that you've vowed to spend the rest of your life with, that's their problem.
Yeah, they just decide to be miserable, so let them be.
Right. Like, I got legitimately like angry. I was like, who did someone say something to you? Because I'm gonna punch him in the face. Like, yes. there's no time for stuff like that. It's just be what you do, what you want to do, like, legally.
Yes, that is a good point. Legally and safely.
Here's the thing: if people are judging, they're not the ones having fun.
Right.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. They're still trapped in something that's holding them back, and this past, like you said, this 20 months, I feel like has been a great awakening of people just becoming themselves.
Right.
Me being one of them in so many ways. I went through a lot of change during that time in my life, and got to a point where it's like, I'm done. I'm just being me. This is it. I'm done with anyone that wants to bring me down, and I'm just going to be an elf for the rest of my life. Fine.
Right. I was in Target a couple. God, when was this? Last winter, and I saw a guy. Alex will kind of he'll get this one. I saw a guy in a giant poofy jacket, covered in Shawn Michaels, the wrestler from the 90s, 2000s, the Heartbreak Kid. His theme music talks about how sexy he is. He's a sexy boy. Shawn Michaels. Everyone knows Shawn Michaels. And like, this guy's out in Target rocking his Shawn Michaels jacket, and like in my head, I'm getting ready to like take a picture, send it to my friends, and I was like, "No, dude, stop being an asshole. Let the guy wear his jacket. If he wants to rock his Shawn Michaels jacket in Target, do it." Like, why not?
Yes, why not? Indeed, that's exactly it. If it's not hurting anyone, and not hurting you, and it's bringing goodness, don't put that down. Bring it up into the world.
Wear the Shawn Michaels. Wear the elf ears.
Put them together. Let's start a trend. I'm about this.
I'll curl my mustache, style my beard.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep.
TikTok this.
Yeah. Do it. Alex, how are we on time?
Oh,
this
we're
one's
over.
been flying. I thought we were like at like 50.
No. Listen, if you guys want more content, like continue to ask questions, whatever you guys need, and then
we're at about 104.
Damn. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, individuality. Alex, is there anything else you wanted to touch on with that?
No, I'm good. That was
okay.
Good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Great.
All right. I mean, the only main thing that I had in my notes that like I thought about touching on was D&D. You had mentioned D&D just exploding in popularity. How long have you been into kind of that genre? Is that something new with the explosion? Has that been something you've always been interested in terms of being a fantasy illustrator yourself? What's your experience with the role playing games?
Yes, the D&D lands. Well, you would think that someone like me would have definitely been very knowledgeable and knowing of these things, Magic Cards Gathering, D&D. I knew of them, but I did not necessarily know them until this big popularity boom of it. And then I was introduced to it. And then when I was introduced to it, that's when it just like blew up, and then everybody was about it. So it wasn't even like because of that. I was literally introduced to it before it just became like a mainstream thing. And it's definitely opened up a huge world for me in terms of just creating and creatures and storylines and all this kind of stuff. And I think it's a beautiful thing for so many individuals, especially now, to allow yourself to have a consistency of imagination in a narrative. I think that's really cool. So I'm fairly new to it still. I do play it, but it's been a little bit since lives are lives and things get busy and things happen. Yeah. So, but I mean, what do you think I always play in D&D?
Oh, dwarf. No.
Dragonborn.
Yes. Anyway, no, I always play a woodland ranger elf.
Nice.
Who talks to animals and plants and brews the best lavender ale.
Alex, is Brett's character, is he a half elf ranger? I don't remember. Oh, Brett's gonna kill me.
No,
Brett, I'm sorry.
Oh goodness, he's done so many characters that sometimes I forget.
He's also played like 30,000 games. We have like the main friend game that we play with me, Alex, Brett, and some friends of ours. That's our first game, at least the first game that I ever played, and I think that most of us were ever players in. That game's been going on for, good Lord, 6-7 years now.
That's beautiful. That's amazing.
But, we'll only get to play like once every 5 months.
Yeah, we haven't played that game since the beginning of pandemic. I think.
I see. Oh, consistency is still a thing. You guys still do it. It's fine. It spans over years. It's okay.
No, I think Brett's a drow.
Yeah.
Right?
Like that sounds familiar.
Yeah. I got there.
Yeah.
Brett, you can stop screaming at your phone now. We got it. We got there. I apologize. But,
sorry, Bretters.
But yeah, D&D, super fun. I also see you doing a lot of commissions for characters.
Yes.
Are those, what's it like working, because a lot of people have their character in their head, and do you find that people are able to like get that out and say, hey, this is what I want? Is there a lot left to you for interpretation? What's your average kind of D&D commission experience like?
Gotcha. So in terms of like being like you said, an average D&D commission, obviously I've learned to ask certain questions that help me when it comes to detailing and certain aesthetics like race and certain kinds of creatures that are parts of this creature design, and any kind of like designs on any armor or any of that kind of stuff. You'd be surprised that a lot of people are like, oh, I never really even thought of that. And I'm just like, I want to know the reasoning behind the ring that is on his pinky finger. Like that is what I need to know in order to really get that feel for the piece and the character. And so I ask about the personality of their said characters, and that, you know, allows me to understand what position to put them in, and how, whether they are shy and sly that, you know, jump through trees, that obviously they need to be very agile looking or in some sort of pose that makes them seem very ready to flow through the air, versus someone who's just like a trickster with a hidden knife in 2 of their pockets and might need a smirk and a solid stance. You know what I mean? So, but I have found, which I am so great, I get nervous. Like, I want to get these characters as perfect as possible, because I want people to have something beautiful in their lives, and something so personable, because everyone deserves that kind of goodness in their life. You know, that's, like I said, goodness is my thing.
Right.
And I've been finding that even when I'm getting nervous, like, man, I hope I'm on the right track with this, as I'm developing the thumbnail sketching and asking them what direction they might go into, getting a little bit more of a solid sketch that then turns into the final drawing. And every single one so far has basically been so ecstatic at how I have made their characters that they were just like, I was not expecting this, because it's exactly what I wanted, if not better. And I'm just like, what? Really? Oh, that's great. I'm so glad to be on that track for them. And, you know, it helps me too as an artist, because if I want to get into this direction in my life, it's a good confidence boost, since we're, again, our own critics, and we kind of put our work and put ourselves down a lot while we're, you know, developing our style and our work. And to get that feedback, to knowing that, you know, our work is making that difference to people in such a beautiful way, it keeps people like me going. So yeah, that's been the general gist of all my clientele as a whole, which is great. I'm so happy I'm able to hit every character, quote unquote, perfectly for them.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Are you currently, for anyone listening at home who may have that perfect D&D character that they want visualized, are you currently taking commissions? If someone were to, and this is my perfect segue into, you know, how can people, if they wanted to find your work, if they wanted to hit you up for work, where could they go to do so?
Well, yes, I'm always accepting commissions. With the teaching job, when people ask for commissions, I definitely, you know, if they want a deadline, it has to kind of work with the teaching life too, because it can be draining, and it's also a creative field of sorts. So, got to make sure I'm able to work with that. But if people do want to look to see if my style works for what they want, because I give traditional, I'm not just doing $50 digital art, which people are mind-blowing at that. I dropped you guys.
We're still here.
Yay. But nonetheless, what was I saying? I post mostly all of my work very up to date on my Instagram. So that is a Putnam _ illustration, and Putnam spelled Putnam. Some people put a U there. Yep. But I also have a website, amandaputnam.com. That is not as frequently updated, because that is not as visited as my Instagram is. So I also started a TikTok for my art, which is fun. Same handle, if anything, a Putnam _ illustration. So maybe I can be posting some more processes. But yeah, if people are interested, I love to talk. I love to talk shop and fantasy. So I'm always open to listen and seeing where the journeys go with my artwork. So.
Excellent. Well, this has been everything I hoped it would be. Thank you, Amanda, for coming on and doing this.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate both of you for your time. This is wonderful. Really do. Thank you.
This has been a ton of fun. It's been great because I was talking to Brett earlier because he was we were chatting and he's like, oh, you're getting ready to record, blah blah, and I was like, yeah, this one's cool because like we don't know her personally, but like it's sort of, it doesn't have that usual stress of someone that I don't know because like I know them through extension. Like if Brett thinks they're good people, they must be good people. Like
Brett knows good people.
He's
gonna love the fact that he's been like the subject of this.
Oh no, he's bashful. He's gonna get a little embarrassed.
That Brett Kelly. Every time we say his name, his face is red. But the dude deserves it. He's a wonderful human being.
Yes.
But with all that said, again, thank you, Amanda. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for teaching and continuing to teach, especially through all this garbage that you've had to deal with.
Appreciated. Thank you.
Can't imagine how difficult that can be, but thank you for what you do. And yeah, I guess it's going to be it. Go check out Amanda's work on Instagram and the website. And there is a Twitter. The Twitter's a little inactive, but there is a Twitter.
Yes, there is a Twitter. It's just very inactive. But it might be something I will get to more so eventually. But it's on the forefront.
I feel you. One thing at a time. We'll get there.
Yes, exactly. That in this time and age, you gotta try to not stress yourself too much and just be like, I'm moving forward, even if it's the littlest step forward. It's
absolutely
happening. So just be, thankful of that journey, part of the journey. So, yeah.
Couldn't put it any better myself. I think that's a perfect note to end on. So I'm gonna end it. So until next time, I have been JR.
I'm Alex.
And I'm Amanda.
and this has been episode 442 of Opinions May Vary. Hey everyone, if you like that episode, be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Opinions May Vary, and on Twitter and YouTube at OMV Podcast. You can also find us on Spotify or on our very own website at omvpodcast.com. And if you're looking for merch, we have stickers and pins available over at omvpodcast.bigcartel.com while supplies last. As always, thank you so much for listening. Let us know what you thought in the comments, and we will see you next time.